So welcome back everybody. I have some footage here that I found on my camera of Elba swimming in Puerto Rico just before the pandemic kicked off really. And I've got some footage coming up, just little snippets of us running with the spinnaker all the way across from Cuba to Mexico. So enjoy, there's a whole lot of different variety of things coming up, so hope you enjoy the episode. We finally got a steady enough wind and a good point of sail so that we could get just the spinnaker up. In reality, the slamming of the main sail is just too much. So my sail bag's for getting repair, so we've had to lash down the sail and buttons like that. So far we've got about, the weather reports keep changing and different weather models are different, but it's looking like it's going to hit here and begin in about an hour. So I'll show you what we've done with it. Got 2 anchors out, just because I've got 3 actually, but I may as well use 2. And see the normal anchor chain set up. We're using a snubber on that cleat, and then on the other cleats, can't see it because it's a bit slack at the moment, but that actually goes all the way over there, which is where we're expecting the wind to come from. And I have it wrapped round the cleat there, and it's back up in case the cleat fails. I've got it on that cleat, and then the remaining line goes back into the chain locker. We've got fenders out as well on both sides, so everybody else has pretty much got the same setup. And at this time, depending which weather model you use, ECMF or GFS or both, it's looking like it's moving. The eye of the storm is moving a little bit more kind of say northeast, and that actually means that, ironically, because it's moving away from the coast, rather than the eye passing over the top of us, really it's gonna, the west quadrant, or the northeast quadrant, is gonna probably hit us. And then if you look at the next weather model, we're on the other side of the quadrant, so yeah, I guess we'll just have to see. Dog doesn't really care, wants to go for a walk. And it's all a bit messy down here because we were up towards the late hours. But I have another crew member on board, which is very handy. A dangerously good-looking man. I'm not sure how smart I am to leave this good-looking man on the boat with my girlfriend. But yeah, so we've got the 3 of us, and we've been prepping. How did you sleep, Tom?
Amazing. That room is unbelievable.
Exactly, and the bed's bigger, right? It's a bigger bed.
It's beautifully nice. You open that hatch up and it just flows in there. Oh.
There you go. How'd you sleep, Eva?
I can't remember anything.
So, yeah, the thing
so
is,
I think I sleep fine.
we had beautiful Argentinian red wine for dinner last night. We thought we'd treat ourselves, and we went out for a nice bite to eat. So yeah, got the anchor alarm set up. You can see where the anchor was laid, and that's where we currently are. And this is just using an Anchor Pro application on the notepad, which uses the GPS. And that's actually set up to speak with my telephone, unbelievably. So if I'm away from the boat, this application uses another application called Telegram. Once you set it up right, it'll telegram like WhatsApp my phone if the boat moves, which it was doing in the restaurant yesterday. So yeah, we're going to do a bit of a tidy up. Shouldn't really be showing the internet how dirty my boat is at the moment, but yeah, we were flat out last night. So unbelievably, also the dinghy line chafed, and I had to go and swim after my dinghy. So that's the way it is. And these guys are just, as you can see, I think they're just trying to put a bit of tension on their secondary anchor. Yeah, they've got the chain and the road on the wrong side there, so that's what happens when you don't set them far enough apart. so you should really set the anchors like that. Everybody has different views. I was going to do it again. It's tempting to try and see if I can I have a Fortress 17 kilo, but it's a very large fluke kedge anchor, which I found to be phenomenal, and I've got it on a separate line, as you can see, in case my whole ground tackle fails. You can actually see quite nicely from here. I've got that's a Mantis chain hook, and I think it's magnificent the way it works, and it's got a little strap to stop that chain coming out. I've gone through a lot of chain hooks in the past 2.5 years, especially the very, very heavy ones. They're just not heavy enough, really. That's done a good job so far, so we're going to give it a really good testing now. So at the moment you've got an extreme close-up of me because I'm servicing the washer dryer. So what I noticed when I hooked up to the 60 Hertz, stupidly I forgot that the washer dryer was 50 Hertz. So I've done a bit of a YouTube search for similar models, and as always you learn a lot from YouTube, so I'm going to pass it on for you. So for this model, which is Candy Grand Space, I've basically taken off the top. It's running at the moment, and I've got it's a load in there just drying, just to test it out. But you can see this whole aspect is like, it's basically the drying aspect. You see a little motor turning there, and that blows the hot air, and the element is here, and it blows the hot air in, and then there's a Venturi system that basically dries dries all the clothes completely. And what's interesting is I was thinking to go and order some parts from the internet, which probably take a few months to get here, but actually some hero has just said that first thing you should try is these two little jobbies, this little button, and it's basically like a bit like a trip, really, a bit like an aircraft display trip. So when I switched off the electricity and I pushed one of those down, it actually reset it, and it's as simple as that. So I've saved myself hauling this big washing machine out this whole big beast up through this port again, because Mark Asprey, the agent for MI Cats, that's the agent in the UK for Neel, actually bought this as a gift for me. So I'm really happy that I've managed to keep it going. And so shout out to Mark.
Nos vemos con muchos langostas. Espérame, escúchame.
Roosters.
Now you're gonna have the spears, yeah? Yeah, I'll go.
Okay, ciao. Yes.
So unfortunately this wasn't a very successful outing, but what you'll notice is that Thomas has a fixed spear that we made out of a broom handle and a crossbow bolt, and actually we found that to be a lot more effective at getting lobsters. And in Ascension Bay and by Espiritu Santo, which was more north of where we are now, we managed to get quite a good harvest and keep us going for quite a while. So bit of information there. It's quite hard work just to be loading up the spear gun. Doesn't look it, because I make it look easy, but it's not. And yeah, so if you're thinking about investing in expensive kit, don't. You can probably make something better. might be wondering is how we charge our cylinders. And on board we've got an L&W compressor, which I highly recommend. It's not failed me yet, and it gives you a little bit more freedom. It's very hard to fill up cylinders if you're off grid, and so we run the generator and three-phase generator and fill the cylinders that way. What Tomas is pointing out at the moment is there's actually some calamari up ahead. It's quite hard to see it because the clarity is not great, but yeah, it's nice to see a bit of wildlife.
¿Dónde están los lobsters? No sabíamos nada de lobster.
So I don't want to bore you with too much of my diving videos, but it gives you an idea. That was with my friend in the south of Mexico, Mahahual. But so my friend jumped off the ship and stayed in Mexico. We continue on south to Guatemala, buzzing past Belize, and this is actually the entrance to the Rio Dulce River, and yeah, pretty tough navigation. So for those that want to know, this is we took a bearing of 220 magnetic, keeping the red. Actually, it's the starboard hat marker in this country, but on a port. Yeah, so we managed to make it across. So anybody else thinking about a Neel 51, you can do it, but just have to do it at spring tide. So yeah, we were waiting around until 5 in the morning, I think it was. We made it in the end. So the following footage gives you some idea of what it's like. What's a little bit interesting, I guess, is that at one point in the transit, I've kind of cut the video short, so I'm not sure whether you'll be able to see it even in high definition, but the central display there is a customizable display with the B&G, and I have my depth reading, and I've set up the depth sounder bang on perfectly, using an old school plumb weight and line. And so I know that if it says 1.8, then my keel should be touching. And interestingly enough, on the transit, it actually read at 1.1.3. And you'll be wondering, how is that even possible? Well, the point is that the river silt will still give you a depth sounding, but it's very light silt, and you can actually churn through it without damaging the keel. And that's basically what happens. So we actually read 1.3 at some points, but kept going. And we weren't even churning up any gunk behind us, which would be a pretty good sign that you've gone too shallow. You'd look behind the stern and you'll start to see the sand and all the gunk be churned up behind you. Yeah, I don't recommend doing that too often, but if you're sailing in the UK, my friend Steve tells me that it's a regular thing it's called puddle hopping. So yeah, don't recommend doing it too much, and make sure you know what you're doing. But yeah, it's not exactly a relaxing experience. But we made it in the end, and all the residents, or the permanent residents of the Rio Dulce, call it the bar exam, so the sand bar. Yeah, that makes sense. really. During our stay in Livingston, we encountered actually quite a bit of wind blowing from our stern at the moment in this shot, and you have the current which comes down the river, of course, and that creates quite a bit of swell. And if there's enough wind, the boat starts swinging around the bow anchor. So there might be an idea, if anybody else is thinking about doing it. What you could do is put an additional anchor off the stern and keep yourself in the position that we're kind of pointing to at the moment, and you could then add tension to it or haul it in using the winch on the most starboard aspect close to where I'm standing at the moment, if you were that way inclined. And also it's helpful if you're single-handed, you can actually use that winch. You just need a couple of turns around that starboard winch and you can actually haul in a remarkable amount. So if you had a nice runner and running straight from the stern, or even indeed you can actually put anchor rollers, but it looks a bit unsightly. But it's worth considering if you're thinking about doing it single-handed. Made it. So there is the port captain's over there somewhere. Dog's impressed. And so we're in 2.8 meters depth at the moment. So we are. So what's interesting, because there's absolutely no help from anybody at all, really. There's a lot of scant information, of course, quite typical of sailing. So yeah, I took a bearing of 220 magnetic in from you can see this is Navionics, but yeah, I basically sighted myself up from quite a bit out. So we're just about to sail up the Rio Dulce. A little bit overcast, which is nice because it was really hot this past few days. So we've cleared in, had the PCR test, which was negative for both of us. And apparently they still want us to quarantine for 2 weeks, which seems a bit silly, but anyway, at least we're in. So here we go. So an interesting point to note is that the transit from Livingston to the port of, oh well, it's not really a port, a bay of Rio Dulce or Fronteras, where the bridge is actually about 22 miles. And from what I can ascertain, the battery capacity of an electric propulsion on something like a Neel 51 will give you approximately 15 to 20 miles. So that does make you think, is it a wise decision? Because it'd be very difficult to sail up this river just relying solely on wind. It would take you a very, very long time, and probably wouldn't have enough wind even to go against the current. So it's worth thinking about, folks. And what you'll notice is that we're coming up to a point here. If you look carefully, we'll buzz past it in the time lapse, but there's some low cables, and we had to really, really take our time. And what you can't see is, there you go, that's the cables. And what you can't see is there's two other people behind us. What I found out later was that they had almost no decent depth soundings. But for the first time ever, I can actually say something good about the Navionics and B&G cooperation, which is that you can essentially use the community sonar readings, which if you switch on the option and you've downloaded the information, it gives you very detailed soundings of the river, which is extremely useful and far better than just the normal charts. So if you've activated it, it makes the life a little bit more relaxing going up the river. And what I would say is that it's very interesting. I'm obviously speaking from a marina here in the Rio Dulce, right at the top. I'm in a place called Hacienda Tijax, or Tihash with the Mayan dialect. And I've moved through a few different marinas because it's, let's say, slightly colonial around here, and there are some questionable business ethics of some of the marinas, and I was booked into one called Nana Juana Marina, and unfortunately they didn't want any people working on the boat, and also I couldn't even clean my boat unless I hauled it out. So one can only speculate to the reasons behind it, but I've now made some friends, and I understand they've had real problems being on the hard in Nana Juana. Yeah, if you're thinking about transiting up the Rio Dulce and thinking about hauling out, doing some work, I would strongly recommend you to avoid Nana Juana Marina. In fact, actually, there is nowhere to haul out. Nana Juana have a trailer which they put underneath the catamarans and haul you out that way, but I just wasn't convinced that it was safe for the outer armors of the 51. So yeah, didn't haul out, and don't really need to anyway. There's plenty of other places in the next few months that we're going to be able to haul out. So worth thinking about, folks. No matter how much research you do, the moral of the story is, whatever you do, don't pay too much time in advance for a marina until you're happy that you definitely want to stay there. All right, good luck. And again, thanks everybody for watching and supporting me. I've actually reached over 1,000 subscribers, which means I can actually make a little bit of revenue. So far I've made $7. So yeah, we're not going to break the bank, but anyway, it's something. And yeah, I really appreciate your support. So I know this video is very different from all the other ones I've done recently. I'm actually planning in the forthcoming videos of doing all the modifications I've done inside the Neel 51 and all the modifications I've done outside as well. And I know a lot of you are interested in those, but I'm waiting for some things just to be complete before I do that. So yeah, if you don't mind clipping, if you've managed to make it this far in the video, can you just give me a like and subscribe, and that'll help me get a wider audience and a little bit of revenue. All right, thanks so much. Take care.